Hi there, Pokey the Bear with part 4 of the Night Circus. We were on page 212. We just finished up another room description. And I'm going to start off today about talking about Bailey. So Bailey went ahead back to the circus in 1902 and went and saw the fortune teller. Now, the fortune teller's tent says, "Fates foretold and darkest desires disclosed." Now, as we're aware, the fortune teller is Isabella, and she is Marco's girlfriend kind of thing. She's trying to keep an eye on Cecilia. Cecilia and Marco are still in this challenge, which is taking over the whole circus, and it is the circus. The circus is their challenge, kind of, in a way. But Bailey goes and sees the fortune teller, and the fortune teller ends up reading him a fortune, which is basically saying that he's gonna have to take over the circus. Now, he doesn't know that, but Isabella knows it that second, and after that meeting, she destroys something that was actually keeping the circus protected. But Bailey all of a sudden feels at peace, because we remember from the past, Bailey was having issues deciding what he wanted to do with his future. His dad wanted to take over the farm. His mom wanted to go to Harvard. He just wanted to be a kid and go to the circus. But here, the fortune teller is telling him that, like, his future is already decided for him, and he has no control over it. And that leaves him at peace. So right after that chapter, we go to page 223, and it's The Wizard and the Tree. Now, this chapter is all about Poppet and Widget just enjoying their life in the circus, and Widget telling his sister Poppet a story about, well, it's an old story, it's an old folklore, and it's told all over the world in different aspects, but Widget's version is there's this wizard who falls in love with a very beautiful, very intelligent, very cunning woman. Now, she has to be beautiful and intelligent because she slips his secrets out of him. And after getting his secrets out of him, she encases him in a tree where he must live forever and ever until all of eternity. Now, in a way, Widget thinks this is a good story because the tree lives eternally, because there is a wizard trapped in the tree and he will never die. He becomes the tree. But Poppet doesn't really necessarily see that in the same light because she feels kind of trapped in the circus. We then go and continue to 1895, and here we have Tara Burgess talking to Alexander. Now, as we know, Alexander is one of the people that caused this whole challenge, so this might not necessarily turn out for the best intentions of Tara. She's gone to this hotel, she's gone looking for Alexander. The hotel tells her that he's not here. He doesn't exist. This man must not have checked in yet. But here she's had this card that was given to her when she spoke to the engineer about Alexander, and she knows he's at the hotel. She turns around from the desk, and there he is, standing in the middle of the lobby. Nobody else seems to see him, but she does. And he ends up following her and walking her to the train station. She's asking him, well, is there more going on in the circus? Because if there is, this isn't fair to the rest of us that you're doing these things behind our back, that it's this dark place. And he insists there's nothing going on. There's nothing going on. And of course, then she sees Mr. Alexander talking to someone who doesn't appear to be there, which, as we would be aware, would be the other start of the challenger, Celia's dad, Hector Bowen. There he is talking to him on an empty train platform as though there is nobody walking around. And because Tara is focusing on this man talking to nothing, she ends up stepping in front of a train, and she dies. What's that? Tara Burgess asked the wrong questions, and ends up dying because she stepped out in front of a train. And now her sister Lainey is the only Burgess sister left. Now, then, meanwhile, well, 1895 is going on. The circus is in Munich, and Celia is getting re-in-touched with the clockmaker, Mr. Frederick Thiessen, and they're enjoying their company as the circus is here. So those were just some mild details I thought deserved to be in there, because the clockmaker is a really big part of this story, but he's not part of the main story. But he's a beautiful person. Like, you really learn to fall in love with the clockmaker after everything he's done for the circus and everything. Like, he brought the revelers to the circus. He brought the people that even go to the circus to the circus. But they ended up not being in Munich for very long because, of course, they heard about Tara. So the whole circus ends up going to Glasgow, which is in Scotland, for everybody that isn't aware of geography. But the whole circus ends up going to Glasgow because that's where Tara Burgess is going to have her funeral and be married, and have her funeral. That's where she's going to have her funeral and be buried. So then we're going to skip ahead to page 245, and I'm going to read a little bit of the conversation from Testuco, the contortionist, to refresh your memories, and Isabella, the fortune teller, obviously. Testuco says, "You have seen things that defy belief, have you not?" And Isabella knows. And then Testuco goes, "Do you think perhaps those things would be more difficult to reconcile if you were not a part of them yourself? Perhaps to the point of driving one mad. The mind is a sensitive thing." And then Isabella goes, "Well, I don't think that Tara stepped in front of this train on purpose," because she feels like Testuco is kind of implying that in the conversation. But really, Testuco just knows things that the rest of the circus members might not know. And as you learn more about Testuco, you realize that she knows pretty much everything that's going on. But she is saying, well, it happened. Maybe she was just crazy. And then she ends up going on to say, "I contend that it's a possibility, at the very least, that she did it on purpose." And then Isabel says, "Well, it could have been an accident." Then Testuco points out, "Well, have you had any accidents lately? Any broken bones, burns, any injuries at all?" And Isabella's like, "No." And then she goes, "Well, have you taken ill? Even the slightest of sniffles?" And Isabella goes, "No." And then Testuco says, "I do not believe any of us have since the circus has started. And no one has died until now. No one has been born either, not since the Murray twins, Papa and Widget. Though it is not for lack of trying, given the way the acrobats carry on." And in those moments, you realize, like, if you think about it, back then, it's 1895, it's the late 18s, there's the circus going on now. I don't know if you guys realize how hard these people had to work for that sort of thing, but a lot of people died. Like, being in the circus was a dangerous profession. Acrobats fell all the time. They died, they broke bones, like, big cat people got attacked. It was a thing. People got injured, even in just setting up the circus. And here you have a whole circus. Nobody's been injured. Nobody's even been sick in the 1800s. That just doesn't smell right to me. I don't know if it smells right to you. But then a few pages later, Testuco talks about, Testuco and Isabella are still talking about their lives, kind of, I guess, in a way. And Isabella asks Testuco if she's been in love. She goes, "Have you ever been in love, Kiko?" And Testuco, she does not really have an answer. Her answer is a very Testuco answer in a way that it answers the question, but it doesn't answer the question. It leaves more questions than it answers. She says, "I have had affairs that lasted decades and others that lasted hours. I've loved princesses and peasants, and I suppose they loved me, each in their own way." So she just admitted to being a lesbian in the 1800s in the circus. And in the same way, she doesn't respond to the question. which I think that you guys, as listeners or readers, if you're following along with this, you should really take some moments to think about what she says historically and because of what has gone on in the book, and just try to come up with your own ideas, because I don't want to give everything away right this second. I did forget to say spoiler alert at the beginning of the book, beginning of the video, because obviously it's part 4 and we're over halfway through the book, so of course there's going to be spoiler alerts. But we'll then go to page 249, where I'm going to read another room description. This one is called Labyrinth. You walk down a hallway peppered in playing cards. Row upon row of clubs and spades. Lanterns fashioned from additional cards hang above, swinging gently as you pass by. A door at the end of the hall leads to a spiraling iron staircase. The stairs go both up and down. You go up, finding a trapdoor in the ceiling. The room it opens into is full of feathers that flutter downward when you walk through them. They fall like snow over the door in the floor, obscuring it from sight. There are 6 identical doors. You choose one at random, trailing a few feathers with you. The scent of pine is overwhelming as you enter the next room to find yourself in a forest full of evergreen trees. Only these trees are not green, but bright and white, luminous in the darkness surrounding them. They are difficult to navigate. As you soon begin walking, the walls are lost in the shadows and branches. There is the sound of a woman laughing nearby, or perhaps it is only the rustling of the trees as you push your way forward, searching for the next door, the next room. You feel the breath on your neck, but when you turn, there is no one there. See, we haven't even reached my favorite room. My favorite room is near the end, and it's heartbreaking. It breaks my heart every time I read it. So some of these rooms I read because I think those are the most heartwarming and they make you fall in love with the book. Some of them I don't really read for myself. I read them for you guys because I think that if you're not going to read the book, at least you got to hear the best parts of the book, in my opinion. Might not be my favorite part of the book, but it's coming. Trust me. When you hear my favorite part of the book specifically, you're gonna cry. I know you will. And if you don't, then you're a little heartless. But it's okay, because we're all a little heartless. We then go to... Ooh, give me a moment to compose myself, because my notes are like this. I'm not really reading off of a script. It's just all notes of what I needed to say about the book, The Night Circus. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day, though, right now, at this moment in time. Of course, we're right back on Bailey. I forget, through the second half of the book, Bailey becomes so much more of an important person in the book. But we're right back on Poppet and Bailey and Widget, and that's actually when Bailey reintervenes with Poppet. He's been to the circus looking for Poppet, but he hasn't found her yet. And he walks out of the fortune teller's tent and, turns, and there, he sees Poppet and Widget doing tricks with little kittens, making the kittens jump through hoops and doing all sorts of fun stuff with the kittens that I guess big cat tamers do too, but they're doing it with kittens. They actually even say at the end, if you want to go see the big cats, we'll take you to our parents' tent because they do the big cats. But she introduces Widget and Bailey, and she reintroduces herself to Bailey because obviously he hasn't seen her since she gave him the glove when he broke into the circus during the day all those years ago. But they end up walking around the circus and having snacks, and they show him all of these wonderful tents that he just hasn't seen yet. There's so many tents, there's so much to do in this circus, and it being all in black and white with no discerning here's a red sign that tells you to go, because everything's in black and white. So it's pretty much fate decides where you go in the circus. But here Papa and Widget come along like, let's show you everything in the circus, man. You haven't even seen the best parts. They're asking him if he's been in the cloud maze or this or that. So they end up going to the cloud maze. And they're just like astonished that he hasn't seen all of their favorite tents. But here's the sign that's outside the cloud maze's door. The cloud maze, an excursion in dimension, a climb through the firmament. There is no beginning. There is no end. Enter where you please. Leave when you wish. Have no fear of falling. And in this maze, it's like, think about bouncy houses, but it's a whole room, and like it goes up, and you can get all the way to the ceiling, and then you can like jump from the ceiling and just land. And it's like a bouncy house. It's like a big, like, I want to go to this cloud maze. I really want to go. Somebody needs to invent a giant adult bouncy house that is the cloud maze. Maybe one day. Well, after they go to the clown maze and after they talk for a while, Papa ends up giving Bailey a ticket that will get him into the circus free of charge, wherever he wants. It says this card entitles the holder to unlimited admission at Le Cirque de Rêves. And in small letters beneath that, it says Chandris Christopher Lefebvre, Profiteer. Which, you know, he's the guy that founded the circus. So, of course his name's got to be on there. But Bailey is like, oh my God, you've just given me a ticket to the most magical place on earth. And I can come in whenever I want. We then go to 1896. And it's a midnight dinner. And this midnight dinner is really different because it's subdued. It's quieter. It's not as extravagant, as extra as all of the other midnight dinners. But on top of it, Celia and Marco realize that they're in love. Now, obviously, you are aware that they can't be in love. Because if they're in love, then when the challenge dies, when the challenge is done, one of them's going to be heartbroken. Absolutely heartbroken. And how could anybody live with that kind of thing after that happens? But they get to enjoy this midnight dinner because they freeze time kind of and just see each other for a minute. And they stay there after all the guests have gone. Cecilia stays there and she takes a tour with Marco. He shows her all sorts of rooms in this big house, and he shows her a garden that isn't really a garden. Of course, he uses his magic to show her a beautiful rose garden, but when she awakes, or when she's like aware, she realizes it's just a deteriorating garden. But he shows her the beauty in all of this cluttered house. And they talk about their childhood, of course, because this is how people fall in love. They end up talking about their childhood, yada, yada, yada. One thing leads to another. But they talk about their childhoods, and as you know, their childhoods were very, very messed up childhoods. He was an orphan. He's lived his whole life in London. Doesn't even have, like, Alexander's not his father. He's his teacher who trained him so that he could send him off to this challenge to die, essentially, or to survive, to win, I guess. And she was raised by the dad who's like, you have to win, and then he just vanishes off the face of the planet, as you and I would understand. But that's a pretty big turning point in the book, in my opinion. So I'm actually going to take a little break because that was about 20 minutes worth, and I think that might be enough for right now. But we are on part 3 officially of the book, so we know there's 3 parts now. It's called Intersections. So I will return with that in a few moments.